All right, so thanks everybody for joining us at Student Loans 101. We're very excited to have you here and help answer your questions. Just as a reminder, this is recording for those who are just joining us, so please put any questions that you have directly in the chat and don't unmute until we're done the session today. So thanks for joining us. My name is Haley and I work at the Office of Student Financial Support, and we help students apply for student loans and answer your student loan questions. We've already talked a little bit about the land acknowledgement, a little bit more about today's workshop. So um, I will do, as I mentioned, a bit of a presentation. Then we're going to look at some of the main sections of the student loan application, and then there will be time for you to answer lots of questions. And I mean, one of the main things we hope to hope that you come away with today, impress on you, is that if you have questions after today, you will always have somebody to come and chat with. So you can always come and talk to us at the Student Service Center in person, on phone, email. We're on the second floor of this newish building. Well, it's an old building that's been renovated. Ooh, there it is. UCommons is what it's called, University Commons. It's a little bit empty at the moment, but it's filling up. They've added some like sitting chairs and stuff. So that's very exciting. So that's the Student Service Center. If you have questions about any of your funding, about anything we mentioned here today, about bursaries, emergency funding, scholarships, awards, and other things like transcripts and things like that, they're the main folks for you to chat with. And we will always be there for you. So there's going to be a lot of things where after today you might call Alberta Student Aid for an update on your file, or if you have questions. And we just want you to let you know that's great. It's always good to go. I mean, that's where your loan is coming from. But here at the University of Alberta at the Student Service Center, we do have access to Alberta Student Aid, like the system. We can't change anything in it, but we can see it. So if you have questions or if you want us to interpret anything Alberta Student Aid has said, please come and see us. We'll do our best to do that for you, because we can usually see, most of the time we can see a lot of like letters that are sent to you and things like that if you're a University of Alberta student. So there will be somebody for you to talk to. My colleague Minder is putting lots of links to our various contacts as well in the chat. Uh, so we're here for you. After today, we're going to have some presentations on bursaries. So bursary is, when I use that term, we use it to refer to a kind of like a grant. So it's money you don't pay back from the University of Alberta. It's the University of Alberta bursary, and it is based on financial need instead of a scholarship, which is based on usually merit, grades, volunteerism, things like that. Bursaries are based, if you have a minimum GPA, that's great, and we look at your financial needs. So, for example, if you have a student loan, you get your student loan today, amazing. And after you get that student loan, you still need a little bit of funding to make it through the year. This is a great thing to apply for. It's open for you to do so. And if you'd like to come and do a bursaries 101 session, since you're doing this already right now, Student Loans 101, we're going to have some of those in September, so you can check that website's there. And then starting in about October-ish, we're going to have scholarships 101 as well. So we do lots of 101s. We're really into the providing you with the best resources we can to set you up for success here. So check those out as well. And I know there's links that you can't click on, but that's what Minder has put in the link there in the chat there for you. Okay, so let's talk a little about Student Loans 101, the basics. So this is where I'm going to talk at you for a little bit. I'm going to periodically stop and ask Minder and Claire, our two advisors, if there are any kind of major questions I can ask between these, also to give me a break from just talking at you. Again, if there's a specific question you don't ask to the whole group, just please specifically answer it to Minder or Claire. But otherwise, I will stop every now and then to make sure we're all doing good. Okay. All right. Let's talk about student loans. So what are they? So really, when it's broken down, it's only about 4 steps, and you don't even do all these steps. So step 1 is you apply for the government student loan, which you're doing here today. Amazing work. And then your student loan is going to be sent to downtown Edmonton, where it's going to be assessed. And then you are going to have to keep an eye on your portals. There's going to be a few portals you have to log into every now and then. And then it's going to come to us at the University of Alberta to confirm the loan. So let's talk a little bit about these steps. It's not too bad. You're going to have to do this every year. It's not too bad. You can do it. So first you apply for your government student loan. So applying for a government student loan, this presentation, just to reiterate, is for Alberta students. So That would be anybody who went to high school in Alberta. Now you're going to post-secondary immediately after high school, or anyone who has lived in the province for 12 consecutive months without being a full-time post-secondary student. If you have questions about what that means, please just let us know in the chat. But this is specific to Alberta student loans, and so Alberta residents. If you're not sure if you are, if you've moved around, or your parents or your partner has moved around, just let us know and we'll help navigate that. But anyway, so when you apply for a government student loan through Alberta, you're going to apply on studentaid.alberta.ca, and on that application through studentaid.alberta.ca, you're applying for three things on one application, okay? You're applying for an Alberta student loan, a Canada student loan, and grant funding. So there's no separate Canada student loan application. You're just doing it all on one student loan application. So easy peasy, pretty good. It can take 4 to 6 weeks for that application to be processed. That being said, we are seeing these going in about a week and a half right now. In the past, they've had periods where, it takes them closer to that 6 weeks, but this year they're doing pretty good. So hats off to them. They're doing pretty good. We expect to see it within that week and a half. That being said, on the website, if you're watching this video a little later from now, on the website, they do have estimated assessment time, so you can keep an eye on that. And if it does take a little longer, it doesn't necessarily mean anything is wrong. But you're looking at 4 to 6 weeks, but currently, as of right now in August, you're about a week and a half. So not bad. Once you've applied, you will get a letter in your Alberta Student Aid inbox that says this is how much you're getting. Well, this is if you're eligible, this is how much you're getting, and this is roughly when you're going to receive it. And you can make changes to your student loan application. So if, let's say, you move away from home, or you have a child, things like that, something has changed in your life, you can make those changes. It's okay. Or if you wrote something down wrong on your application. That being said, those changes do take 6 weeks. So it's called a request for reconsideration, and they do take quite a bit of time. So we want to try and help you get everything as accurate on your application as you can now, so that you don't have to go through that request for review process, because that does take a little bit longer. So that's that. Okay, so you've applied for your student loan through studentaid.alberta.ca. Amazing work. Now your student loan is going to be sent to downtown Edmonton, where it's going to be assessed. Okay. Sorry, just 1 second here. Sorry about that. So, important things to know about your student loan. So one of the things that we like to let students know and be aware of is that parental income, spousal income, part-time income are not considered as a resource for the Alberta student loan. So that old adage of my parents make too much money for me to receive a student loan is not actually true in Alberta. Now, with some caveats on there, your parents' income, if you're considered a dependent student, your parents' income are considered for the grant funding that's associated. So that's money you don't have to pay back. And if your parents are just willingly giving you money, if they're voluntarily giving you money every year, that is considered. But your parents' base income is not considered. So if your parents have a higher income, but they're not supporting you at all through school, it does not impact your ability to receive a government student loan in Alberta. So that's pretty nice. Dependent students, I'll talk a little bit more about what dependent versus what independent is. Dependent students are generally anybody under the age of 23. You could choose not to include your parents' income, but that being said, you won't be considered for any of the grant funding. And because there's no harm, because your parents' income isn't going to be assessed, isn't going to be considered on the Alberta portion of the loan, there is no harm including your parents' income if you're able to get that information from your parents. So if you have a good relationship with your parents, we recommend trying to get that information from them, including it in the student loan application. It will only make you eligible to be even considered for grant funding. If you don't include it, you won't even be considered for it. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. Whoop. A little bit about how much you can receive through the year. So you can see here on this chart how much student loan you receive is based on the program that you're studying in. So for undergraduate students, you're generally looking at about 17,000. Now that's the maximum. You might not receive a full 17,000, and that's for 2 terms, so September to April. And I'm going to be using the September to April timeframe quite a bit, but if you're in a grad program or medicine or something like that, your dates might be slightly different, but I'm just going to be using September to April. That's fall and winter term, 8 months total for the purposes of talking about it, the purposes of this presentation. So undergraduate, the maximum amount you can receive is 17,000. Now you might not receive that full 17,000. Also, you might get higher than 17,000 because if you're eligible for grant funding, you get more than 17,000. So it'd be 17,000 plus grant funding on top. Now you'll see that those amounts that you can receive every year does go up depending on the programs that you're in. So if you're in a graduate program or dental hygiene or pharmacy, that number goes up, and medicine and dentistry, those numbers go up. And that's because those programs are more expensive. So if you're an undergraduate student right now, thinking about maybe going into medicine at some point, amazing. You're going to do great. Just note that those programs are a little bit more expensive, but there is more loan and grant funding available for you as well. So this is the maximum amount just for fall and winter, as I mentioned. If you want to apply for spring, summer student loan funding, you can do so later, usually in like the fall. And that would be a separate amount of money. So you'd receive there's a different maximum for spring and summer. This is just for fall and winter. Okay. Grant funding. So when I talk about grant funding, this is funding through the student loan application that you're applying for. And it is a part of the student loan that you can receive. So when you apply, like I said, you'll receive a letter that breaks down how much money you'll receive from Alberta, from Canada, and how much money of it will be grant funding. So from Alberta and Canada, the maximum you can receive is 17,000, but depending on your income, you might receive a little bit more than that based on your income. And that's money you don't have to pay back. So grant is money you don't need to pay back as long as you remain a full-time student. If you drop at some point and aren't a full-time student, you might have to pay that grant back. But while you're a full-time student, that's money you don't have to pay back. So that's pretty nice. It's just money that you get for free for applying for the government student loan to go to school. The main categories of grants are for income. That's sort of the main one there. So based on your income or you and your parents' income, if you're a dependent. Disability, if you have a permanent disability, including learning disabilities, mental health, you can apply for disability funding. That being said, if you are thinking about doing that, if you know you have a permanent disability, we really recommend that you connect with our accommodations folks, accommodations office, and maybe I'll get Minder to throw the link for accommodations in the chat as well, sooner rather than later, because you need to connect with them to apply for that grant. And then if you have dependents, so if you yourself have children, there's grant funding for that as well. So if you are below a certain income, you have disability and dependents, you could get all three of those types of grants. So that's nice. It's money you don't have to pay back. You're assessed right through that student loan application. It's non-repayable. That being said, the maximum amount that you can receive is $4,200 for the year, which is an amazing, it's $4,200 you don't have to pay back. That being said, $4,200 isn't enough. Like if you were to just get the grant funding, it's not enough to pay for your whole school, but it's still a really nice helping amount there. So that's what we mean when we talk about grants. It's money you don't have to pay back as long as you don't drop out of school, okay? Or drop out of full-time studies. Pretty exciting. Good stuff. Stick with me. Okay, so the grant funding is really based on, as I mentioned, it's based on your income. So you're going to be providing income information in the form of the line 15,000. We'll talk about what that is in a few minutes. The line 15,000 is information from your tax return. So, and the line 15,000 for dependent students, who is anyone under the age of 23, who hasn't been married, who doesn't have dependents, who hasn't been out of high school for 4 more years and didn't take a 2-year break after high school, you are considered a dependent student. And so if you're a dependent student, the grant funding is based on you and the income of your parents. If you're an independent student, so anybody who is 23 or over, been out of high school for 4 more years, maybe you took a 2-year break after high school to work or whatever, upgrading. If you're dependents or if you're married or common law is 1 year, then you're considered an independent student. And your grant funding is based just on your income, just on your line 15,000, or you and your spouse if you have a spouse. Just to note, like these terms, dependent versus independent, these are definitions used by Alberta Student Aid for the purposes of this loan. It might not reflect your exact situation. There are many students who are under the age of 23 and feel very independent from their parents. There are many students who feel over the age of 23 and feel not independent from their students financially. So these are just definitions that they use that we have to work within. If you have questions about that, just let us know. There are some special circumstances to be considered independent, but just let us know if you have questions about that. Okay. Okay. So you've applied for your student loan, amazing work. Your student loan's getting assessed, incredible. Now it's your job to keep an eye on your Alberta Student Aid portals. And there is a plural sentence there. We'll talk about it. The big thing, I mean, the number one thing, again, I want you to take away from this is that after the session today, you're going to have somebody to talk to at the University of Alberta. You can come see us at the Student Service Center, always. The second most important thing I'm going to want you to take away from this presentation is to keep an eye on your portal. The most trouble that we see students get into is students who ignore their any notifications that come to them in their Alberta Student Aid portal. So we really don't want you to do that. None of you are going to do that. You're all on top of it. Anybody watching this video, so organized, none of you are going to ignore this portal, okay? Alberta Student Aid does not send frivolous messages. They only send important things. You know, if everything is fine, they send you max like 1 to 2 letters a year. That is it. So we really recommend you set up your email notification preferences, email or text notification preferences as you're applying for the student loan so that you're not missing anything, okay? Please, you all got it. You got this. For example, one of the things they're going to send you, just the first time you apply, is called a Master Student Financial Assistance Agreement or the Student Loan Agreement. These are the documents that you need to complete for them to release your student loan. Basically, they are, and by documents, it's an online form that you complete online, so it's not really a form. It takes very little time, but you need to complete these for them to send out the student loan money. It's a form that is saying that, hey, first of all, everything I send on the student loan is truthful. I report it as truthfully as I can. Second, that I promise to pay back my student loan when I'm no longer a full-time student. And third, it's where you put your banking information so they know where to send the money. So you have to do that the first time you apply, just the first time. So that is, that is a document that's going to show up, or a notification that's going to show up in your Alberta Student Aid portal after you apply that first time. So none of you are going to ignore that. So you get your money. All right. And lastly, now that you've kept an eye on your portal, you've applied, you're feeling good, your student loan funding is going to be sent to us at the University of Alberta, and we need to do a little bit of work. So basically what happens is Alberta Student Aid says, hey, this student applied for a full-time loan for September to April. Are they full-time for September to April? And if you are full-time for September to April in the program that you said you're in, we just click yes, and then your funding is released. So we need to confirm that you were registered full-time at the University of Alberta. The trouble here comes is sometimes students apply for a full-time loan for September to April, but they're not quite full-time yet in winter, usually. This is usually what happens at this time of the year, right? You're just waiting to get into one more course or something like that for the winter term. So we just want to make sure that you are registered full-time for September to April, as long as you've applied for a full-time loan for September to April. Full-time here being 9 credits a term, so 9 credits for fall, 9 credits for winter, which usually evens out to 3 classes a term. But it's based on credits. So 9 credits for fall, 9 credits for winter. And if you have accommodations, if you're registered as permanent disability and have accommodations, that would be 6 credits per term. So just keep that in mind. And then it's also very important to maintain registration while you are full-time registration while you're on your student loan. I'll say it later, but if something happens and you need to drop a course, that's okay. I mean, the most important thing is your health, your academics, your family. So but we just recommend that you come and chat with us, and we'll let you know what impact it will have on your student loan. So yeah, please do come and see us if you're thinking about dropping any courses, okay? Your student loan will be confirmed about 1 to 2 weeks after the loan assessment is completed. So your loan will be assessed, and then it takes us about a week to get that information. It takes a little while for us to get the information, and then we confirm it, and then it goes back to Alberta Student Aid, and then they release the funding. For most of you, if you're applying now, as of right now, which is August, that confirmation hasn't started yet. So we're not allowed to start confirming that student loan until mid-late August. So we're not even there yet. Starting in late August, just make sure that you're registered full-time in both terms if you applied for a full-time loan for both terms. And if you're waiting to get into a class for winter, you'll have until the end of August to get into a full-time class, okay? Or get into full-time registration. And that will happen at end of August, mid-end of August. Again, if you need to make any changes to your registration, we just really recommend you come and chat with us. This is not meant to be like a judgment thing. We'll just give you information on what will happen with your student loan if you do decide to drop from full-time studies. So please just come see us if you end up dropping from full-time studies, or if you're dropping a course and want to know what impact that will have on your loans. Please come and chat with us, okay? We'll let you know, because it kind of depends. What will happen to your loan will depend on what you're dropping and when you're dropping it and things like that. So come see us. Come see us. We got you. We'll help you out. As I mentioned, you're going to receive a letter in your portal letting you know when and how much money you're receiving. And generally, your registration is confirmed by the University of Alberta, and then it takes a week or 2 weeks for that funding to be released. One thing that I will say is that your letter will say, for most of you, is going to say that half of your funding is going to be released on September 1st, and half of your funding is going to be released on January 1st. And we just want to be really clear, no, it's not. You're going to receive your funding the first week or so of September, especially January 1st. There's a holiday. The first week of September, there's a holiday. It usually shows up the first week or so of September, the first week or so of January. So if you don't see it in your bank account on September 1st, that doesn't mean anything is wrong. It just takes about a week for it to arrive. So your tuition for fall is due at the end of September, and your tuition for winter is due at the end of January. So if you're applying today, it's confirmed you have quite a bit of time before your tuition is due. That being said, if you have other expenses due at the beginning of the month that you're hoping your student loan to pay, like rent or residence or something like that, please be aware that the September 1st is not really not really an accurate date that we expect here. Maybe, but it doesn't usually happen on September 1st. So, a portion of your student loan will be sent to University of Alberta if you have any outstanding student or tuition. So when we confirm your student loan, another thing that we confirm is that, hey, yeah, the student hasn't paid tuition yet, which is fine. Most students use their student loan to pay tuition. So a part of your student loan or all of your student loan might be sent to you directly to pay off your tuition in a process that's called tuition remittance. Just to note, your student loan will not be used to pay off residence fees, books, or supplies, or any other fees you might have, just your tuition and fees. We really recommend that students keep an eye on their Bear Tracks account, keep an eye on your bank account when the first week or so of September, because this is a really nice process, the tuition remittance, the fact that your student loan goes right towards your tuition. Although I'll say it works about 85% of the time. It works most of the time, but there are some cases where if you've changed courses or something like that, they just don't send quite enough funding sometimes, or maybe it'll get overpaid a little bit. So we recommend that you just keep an eye on your account that first week or so. Maybe it'll work for you every year just fine. Maybe it'll work for the first 3 years and not the fourth year. It happens quite a bit. We really recommend if we've seen a lot of cases where enough student loan is sent to cover all but $100 of your tuitions. So it is still up to you to pay that $100 of your tuition before the tuition deadline at the end of September. So we just ask to you to take whatever amount was sent to your bank account and then use that to pay for tuition. Okay? So just keep an eye. It works all right. Do we have any questions so far? I'm going to take a sip of water. Anything I'm forgetting, Minter or Claire? Anything else I should say?
No, I think we're good for a little bit of a break. Had some direct messages, but all good.
Amazing. Just nailing it. We don't have any left. We're just doing so good. You all are understanding perfectly. Okay. We're going to answer a few frequently asked questions, and then we're going to look at the application together. Okay. So stick with me. You're all doing great. Okay. So the first little set of questions we get sometimes is, do I have to do this? This is a process you have to do every year. Do I need to apply for a loan every year? Yes. The answer is, if you need a loan every year, you have to apply for a loan every year. They don't know that you're coming back in year 2 or that you need a student loan in year 2. A part of that question is, what if I had a loan last year, but I don't need one this year? Well, that's a great question. Let's say you had a loan in year 1, but year 2, you got a sweet scholarship. You don't need a loan moving forward. You just need the loan for year 1. So what is important to note that government student loans are interest-free, payment-free the entire time that you are a full-time student. So if you are full-time in year 1, year 2, you come back, you're full-time, but you don't need a loan. They just don't know that you're coming back full-time unless you apply for a new full-time student loan. So if you apply for a new full-time student loan in year 2, that will let them know that you're still full-time and you don't need to make any payments on the loan you had from year 1. That being said, if we don't need a loan for year 2, you have to let them know that you're still full-time so that they don't put your loan from year 1 into repayment. So you do that by filling out a form. Again, it's an online form that takes 28 seconds. The hardest part is logging into the system that uses that you have to send it to. But if you have a loan in year one, don't need it for year two, that's just fine. You don't have to make payments, but you will need to complete what's called the confirmation of enrollment and let them know that you're still a full-time student. They are very strict about that. If you forget to do that, if you do it late, anything like that, if it's our fault, if it's their fault, they don't care. It's very much up to you to keep it on your portals and send in that confirmation of enrollment every year. The main one is done through the NSLSC portal, which I can see Minder has posted. The National Student Loan Service Center portal. You can complete it through that portal. It'll update both your Canada and your Alberta student loan. So very important that you let them know that you're full time. If you're not, if you have a previous loan and you're not getting a new loan. I mean, it's a good program. Like you could have a loan in year one and not need a loan for years 2, 3, 4 of your degree, and then not need a loan for your master's, 2 years of your master's degree, and not need a loan for 6 years of your PhD degree. And that loan, as long as you do your confirmation of enrollment every September, as long as you do it, that loan from year one, 12 years ago, will have been interest-free, payment-free that whole time. But it is very much up to you to complete that confirmation of enrollment every year. Okay. When do you need to start paying your loan back? Great question. A little bit more complicated. Only because, so as I mentioned, when you apply for a government student loan, you're applying for a loan from Canada and a loan from Alberta. Both of those loans have different repayment rates and repayment timelines. So for the Alberta loan, you will have 12 months after you graduate where you don't need to make payments. So let's say you finish in April, you will have 1 full year where you don't need to make any payments. You can make payments if you want, but you don't need to. No interest accrues, no payments. A full grace period for 1 full year. So the following May, you will need to start making payments, but you have a full year before your loan enters repayment. At that point, starting in May, the following May, you will need to start making monthly payments and it will start accruing interest at that point. The Canada student loan, because as I mentioned, you have technically 2 loans that you need to make monthly payments towards both of them. Your Canada student loan, you will only have 6 months. So if you end in April, you'll have until October. Starting in that November, you'll have to start making monthly payments. But your Canada student loan is interest-free the entire time. So even once you enter repayment, you're no longer in the grace period. There will be no interest accruing. So the one thing I say about this is that like if you're in year one right now, there is a good chance that this will all change before you graduate. Because what we find is that this is a popular thing, especially if there are elections, to change, and usually change in the favor of students. So for example, the 12-month grace period used to be 6 months, so they changed it to 12. Like things like this do change through the course of your degree. So just come and see us or keep an eye on the website. So if you have questions about that closer to when you graduate and when you stop being a full-time student. Okay. Basically 12 months for Alberta, 6 months for Canada. Do I need to pay my loan back? And the answer it is very important. There are both three. This is question number three. Question number three. This is a continuation of question number three. It's very, very important. Once you enter repayment, so when I talked about your loan going into repayment, it's really, really important to make your monthly payments. It's more important to make your monthly payments on this than other types of debt. The good thing is that if you're not able to make your monthly payments, there's a really good program called the Repayment Assistance Plan. You can apply for it online, and based on your income, if you're not able to make a monthly payment, or if you need to make a smaller monthly payment, you can apply for that and be approved for it for 6 months. And you can apply for that every 6 months. I applied for it when I was done for school. It helped me get on my feet. It's an excellent program. Very important to make your monthly payments. If you can't make your monthly payments, apply for RAP, Repayment Assistance Plan. Okay. Any major questions about, we sometimes get questions about interest and stuff. Anything that I can answer while I take a sip of water?
Just a quick question regarding repayment. You can touch on the good old 10 years. Yeah, but I think we're good.
Yeah, your monthly loan payment is based on a 10-year repayment period. So they look at how much you borrowed, measured out over a span of 10 years. It's an open loan. It's not like a mortgage. You can make payments towards it at any point. So if you, and we recommend it, like if you're able to make little extra payments not necessarily while you're in school, you don't need to because it's interest free that whole time. But once you're in repayment, if you get a tax return or something, even adding on a few extra bucks a month or every 2 weeks is super helpful for the repayment of that loan. Okay. Question number 4, how do I manage my student loan and check on it? Question that literally no one has ever asked, but is probably the most important one here. How do I manage my loan? So as I alluded to, you have portals. Oh, you've got portals. The government in its infinite wisdom, they've got portals. So we've already talked a little bit about studentaid.alberta.ca. This is the application portal. So this number 1 portal here that we're looking at, that's the portal that you're going to use to apply for your government student loan every year. That's where you're going to get your notice of award letter, any communication about your loan. This is the one I'm talking about that you're not going to ignore. I mean, you're not going to ignore any of them, but set up your notification preferences. This number 1 portal is the one that's going to be most useful while you're a student, right? Because you need it every year to apply. The bottom 2 portals, as we've mentioned a few times, you have 2 student loans when you graduate or when you stop being a full-time student, one from Canada and one from Alberta. And because you have 2 loans, you have 2 portals that you need to log into to see the details about either loan. Okay, so your Canada Student Loan, the National Student Loan Service Center, NSLSC, that's where you're going to find information about that. They let you could make payments through that website. You can apply for a repayment assistance plan. You can see, when you're in payment, you can see how much loan you have left and what your payments have gone towards. And then for the same thing for the Alberta loan, you can see when you make payments, you can see how much has gone towards the principal versus interest, etc. So the most important thing, number 1, you're not going to ignore this top portal, your application portal. These other two portals, portal number 2 and 3, become more important when you stop being a full-time student, but I still recommend that students log in about once a year, once a term, just to NSLC and My Loan, just to make sure everything looks to be on the up and up. I know that Minder put the links for both of those portals. So please just check on them about once a term after, maybe after you've gotten your student loan funding, just to make sure everything looks okay. Set up your notification preferences. Do not ignore notifications from them. It's really important. As I mentioned, they have like no mercy when it comes to if there's errors, if you forget to let them know you're a full-time student, those sorts of things. And this is by far the best way to ensure that you don't get into any trouble with either of your student loans. Okay. The loans are really flexible. They're interest-free, they're payment-free. It's just a matter of like communicating with the government about your status. And they're really good programs, but they're not doing anything for you automatically. So this is the best way to make sure you're on top of everything. Okay. Any other major questions, Claire or Minder, that I've missed? And then we'll get right into the loan application itself.
No, nothing at the moment. We're keeping on top of it on chat.
Amazing. So good. Okay, great. Let's dive into the actual student loan application. So I know some of you were thinking about filling out your student loan application like as I'm going through it. Amazing. That'll be great. For right now though, as I mentioned, I'm going to kind of go through, as I mentioned, the 3 hardest parts of the application. Kind of the questions that I think are the most that trip the students up the most and trip me up the most. They're still hard to answer for me too. If you have, like I said, I'm not going to go through each question. So if you have questions about other questions that I'm not answering, please just throw that in the chat. And then when I'm done, kind of this screenshot shot section of the application will end the recording, and you can unmute and ask tons of questions. That's what we'll be here for. Okay, so stick with me. Let's look at the student loan application. If you want to log in, go for it. But I'm gonna be kind of zooming around. Okay, whoa. So this is what the application, the website looks like. studentaid.alberta.ca, not bad. It used to be more gray, so they're adding some color, not too bad. And to apply for the student loan, you're going to go here to returning users, login. Most of you will actually have a login already. If you like, especially if you have a My Alberta digital ID for literally anything else, for Apply Alberta, for your medical, it's the same login system that they use for those things as they do for the student loan. And one thing I'll say about that is we were just talking about it before people joined. It is probably the hardest part of the application is logging into the My Alberta digital ID. It requires a permanent address. It requires that you have ID that can be verified. And so if you are having issues with that, you will have to just call the MADI, My Alberta Digital ID Help Center. It's like one area, it's like one area we can't help with because it's the government login system. It's not the application itself. So we know that call center can be a little bit frustrating. So do your best calling them. They can usually, once you get through to them, they can usually help with logging you in or resetting your account, etc. But if you're having trouble, it's really the hardest part of the whole application. So do your best. Anyway, you go here to log in returning users. And then when you log in the student loan application, it kind of looks like this is the top half. You're able to scroll down and see a little bit more. So for example, on the right-hand side, there were a way for you to update your address and your notification preferences, which you're all going to do because none of you are ignoring it. Your notifications, you're all excellent. The inbox here at the top, so that's where you're going to get that important information. If you have disbursements coming up, for example, it'll be there. But when you apply for government student loan, you're going to go ahead and apply for the 25-26 application. So you'll go start here. Mine says continue, but apply here, 25-26. So unless you're in medical lab sciences, anybody in that med lab sci, let us know. But for everyone else at the University of Alberta, you're going to apply using the 25-26 application. Okay, that's the future we are currently in. So once you apply it, click on that. This is what it looks like. It's not too bad. It's only 3 sections. That's easy. I mean, there's technically a 4th section if you're a dependent student or if you're married or if you have children. But the bones of the application, only 3 sections. You've got this. So the other thing to note here is that this is a cloud-based system, so it will save for 28 days. So if there's anything that you need to go home and check on, if you need to talk to your folks, or if you can't find your line 15,000, you can just exit out of the application. As long as you log in between now and 28 days, everything will be saved, which is really nice. But let's go ahead and look at personal information, section number 1. Okay, so when you first log on this section, there's going to be a page that asks you about like your name and your date of birth and stuff. Some of that might even already be inputted for you. And then it's going to have emergency contact section, the next page. And then the 3rd page is going to be this. This is the hardest page, other than logging into the student loan. This is the hardest page on the whole application. So we're going to go kind of breakneck through these questions and then talk about the bottom 3 questions together, okay? So the top 3 questions are trying to figure out if you're applying for a student loan through the right province. So have you lived in Alberta your whole life? Yes. If no, is it the last place you've lived in for 12 consecutive months? And are you receiving student loan money from any other province, or have you received? If these questions are difficult for you to answer, please let us know and we'll do our best. If you are a new Canadian and you haven't lived in Alberta for the last 12 consecutive months, for the last 12 months in a row, but you haven't lived in any other province, please let us know and we'll let you know how to answer that question. But that's what the top 3 questions are asking. So throw any questions you have about those in the chat, especially if you're a new Canadian that hasn't lived anywhere for any province for 12 months in a row. The next question is asking if you have a disability, and if you do, we recommend that you connect with our accommodations folks because that's how you apply for that grant funding, is through them. At the University of Alberta, were you a former youth in government care? That's what we would colloquially call a foster system. Canadian Indigenous status, if you would like to declare that, you can. It's completely voluntary, doesn't matter anything. If that does not apply to you, you can just leave that blank. Date last completed regular high school, so not including upgrading, and you don't have to put the day, just the month and the year as best as you're able to. Have you been available to work for 12 consecutive months? So that's asking if you took a break off after high school. So did you take a 2-year break at any point? I said consecutive, but it doesn't have to be consecutive. So did you take at least 2 years off after high school to work, to travel, to volunteer, just to do nothing? If you took 2 years total between high school and now, then that's how you would answer that question. That being said, this is one of the wordier questions in the whole application, so let us know if you have questions about that. And then the last 3 questions, those are our meat and potatoes of the application. This is the business. So the last 3 questions are asking about your income, and this is you, the student's income, okay? Not your parents or spouse or anything like that. This is you, the student. So the question here is asking total income from line 15,000 from your 2024 tax return. So when you do your taxes in Canada, you file your taxes. When you've filed your taxes, it's been processed. The government sends you kind of this summary letter, and a tax return summary letter. And on that letter, there are a bunch of bullet points that just kind of summarize everything that you kind of told them about your taxes and your income and things like that. And those bullet points are all named, and they're all named lines. And line 15,000 is the name for gross income. So that means income that you made in 2024 before taxes. Okay, so the line 15,000 is just asking, what did you tell the government was your gross income last year? Okay, it is important to note that this again is for you, the student, and you need to report your exact line 15,000 from your previous year's tax return here. You, the student, need to write down your exact line 15,000. That being said, if you are under 18, if you haven't worked before, maybe you haven't done your taxes yet, it is okay to guess what your gross income was for 2024 and put it in this box. That being said, moving forward, now that you're a student loan borrower, it doesn't matter your age, your income, moving forward, you will need to start filing your taxes. So I think a lot of times students are like, okay, that doesn't apply to me. I didn't work, or I'm young, and that I understand. But now that you're a student loan borrower, you're going to need to have to start filing your taxes in the years moving forward. But for this year, if you haven't filed your taxes, it is okay to guess what your gross income was. I don't know if you want to like look through your bank accounts or maybe look at your pay stub, something like that, and write down what you think your gross income was for 2024. If you didn't work at all, it's likely that it's going to be zero. So your guess for your income would be zero, and that's okay. But ideally, you're going to have your exact line 15,000 moving forward. The next question is asking, do you expect your total income for 2025 to be less than it was for 2024? Now, if you didn't work last year and your income was zero and you don't plan to work this year, or even if you do plan to work this year, it is not going to be less than it was in 2024, right? It would be either the same or more. So you're just going to answer, do you expect it to be less? No. You just answer no, and then you don't have to fill out the third question. If you're, well, where this question is helpful is, let's say you were working full-time in 2024, but now you're coming back to school full-time and you're not planning on working at all. So you would write down your, let's say you made $10,000 last year, you were working. So you would write down your exact line 15,000, which was $10,000. And then it's saying, do you expect your income to be less for 2025? And it's going to be yes, because you're not working, because you're going to school. And then you can write down what you expect your income to be, not the difference between the two, but what you expect your income to be for this academic year. So if you're not working because you're in school, it would be zero. So in that example, it would be 10,000. Yes, I expect it to be less. It could be zero. Maybe you're not sure exactly how much you're going to work. You're pretty sure it's going to be less than it was last year. Just do your best guess. This expected total income for 2025 is allowed to be a guess. The one that should be more accurate is the exact line 15,000 if possible. Okay, that's my spiel on taxes. Do we have any questions? Or Clara Minder, is there anything I can add or clarify while I take my water?
Do your taxes every year, eventually. That's it.
I mean, moving forward, like you get little rebate checks every now and then once you start doing them. So, you know. Okay, I'll move on. But inevitably, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes from now, somebody will be like, wait a minute, what about taxes? So throw those questions in the chat. Just fine. We all process information as we do. And I know some of you are looking at the application as we go. So that's just fine. Okay. Section number 2, studies information. This is my favorite part of the application because it's where you get to write down what you're studying. And we heard what some of you were studying already, and it sounds very exciting. Basically, you're going to type in University of Alberta. You're going to put in your program name. If you're in at Augustana, that will be there. That option will be there, Bachelor of Arts Augustana. If you're at Campus Saint-Jean, there should be all the correct program names in there. And then if you're going to apply for fall and winter, you're going to choose the September to April dates. You can apply term by term. So for example, if you're just like not sure what's going to happen in winter or something, you can certainly apply for fall, and then later on you can apply for student loan just for winter if you want, but most students will apply September to April. If you're going to be applying for spring summer, you can't do that until starting in about February of next year. Your spring summer registration will open. It always opens on February 14th for some reason. Very romantic thing to do. You can register for spring summer courses. And once that date has passed, like once you've registered, then you can apply for your student loan for spring summer. When you open it up, you'll see that there will be more like spring summer dates available. And if you do apply for spring summer, we just really recommend that you come and chat with us. Spring summer student loans are really unique. The deadlines are really short. Come see us in February if you have questions about spring summer student loans, okay? We just tell everybody, just come to us because it's just it's really wacky. Okay, exciting. The next part is asking for the costs for your school year. And these costs, I mean, I don't always know why they're asking for you to provide the costs, because at the University of Alberta, we've actually provided the costs to them already. So you'll see here under tuition, it says full course load amount, 7,150. So you can just write whatever number it says here in the white box. Same with mandatory fees, whatever number it says here. So for the example in this one, it says 2033. You would write 2033 in the white box. Books and supplies, just write whatever it says there in the white box. And then for computer, whether you spend $0 or $5,000 on a computer, they do not care. Just put in 500. They're just going to assess you for 500. So just put in 500 for computer costs. So technically this is there so that if you end up taking fewer courses, you can report a smaller amount of tuition, but you would report this amount for fees anyway. We just recommend, even if you're taking 8, 9 courses, just write in the full course, the tuition amount, in case you end up picking up that course or something like that in the future. So just write down exactly what it says in these white boxes. Again, this is for both September to April. So this is for your full year. Okay. So yeah, your tuition costs, if they're not showing up here, that means that you've maybe chosen something wrong on the other page, but it auto-populates here. So if you can see my screen and my screenshot here, it should auto-populate for you. You can check your tuition costs in Bear Tracks, but again, they're here for you. And it's not going to have textbooks either in your Bear Tracks. So just write down exactly what it says here in the gray, in the white box. Even if you don't know if you want a full student loan, it's very important that you report your costs accurately. So don't write anything else other than just like what's here. So here you go. The next section is asking, are you taking any correspondence, e-learning, and distance programs? The University of Alberta, even if you're taking a course or two online, the University of Alberta is not an e-learning distance institution. So please just say no, with the exception of Master of Library Information Sciences. So if you're a Master of Library Information Sciences, please send us a chat, but otherwise just answer no, even if you're in a class or two online. Are you going to complete your post-secondary program? So if you're in year 4 and you're all done after this year, you'll say yes. Otherwise, you will just say, no, I'm not done. I'm not in my last year. And then your school identification number, that's the 7-digit ID number on your Bear Tracks account or on your one card that you can find. You can throw that in there. Okay. And then the last-ish section, stick with me, is the financial information section. And when you click into it, we'll go through each of these lines, but really the most important financial information that you've provided is the line 15,000 from your taxes. But this is where you're going to let them know about very specific, if you have very specific income or resources to you, this is where you're going to let them know about it. So the first one is actually asking about child support that you pay. So if you, the student, are paying child support to an ex-spouse or partner, then that's where you'll put down how much that is. It's not if you have parents and they're paying child support to each other, don't worry about that. It's if you yourself are paying child support. So if that is true, you'll write down the amount that you're paying in that box. If you're not paying child support, then you'll just write in 0, okay? And then the next question is asking, while attending school, I will, and it asks pay rent or mortgage or not pay rent or mortgage. So this is if you have money coming out of your bank account to pay for your rent, or you're going to be applying, depending on the student loan, to pay for your rent or mortgage, then you will say yes. But if your parents are paying for your rent or mortgage, you would say no. If you're living in residence on your own, but your parents are paying for residence, you would say, no, I'm not paying rent or mortgage. My parents are doing that. If you are living at home and they're not charging you rent, you would say no. But if you're living at home and they are charging you rent, you would say yes. So it kind of just depends on your situation. You might have to chat with your folks a little bit if you're a dependent student in terms of what that living arrangement is going to be like. Okay, just answer as truthfully as you can. If you end up maybe moving out halfway through the year, you can update your student loan application, but as of right now, answer as truthfully as you can. The next question is asking about voluntary contribution from your parents or RESPs. So if your parents are giving you money every month to go to school, or they're paying for your tuition, or they're paying for your residence or something like that, or they have an RESP and you're getting a chunk of that RESP this year, that's where you're going to report that here. I'll just caution, like if you are getting a chunk of money, like if your parents are giving you all of tuition. Let's say they're giving you $7,000 for tuition. Just make sure you take that $7,000 and you divide it by 8, because that's the number of months you're in school. So September to April, or however many months you're in school, but for most students it'll be 8, because this is monthly. This section is all monthly. So if you're getting your money in like a chunk, just make sure you divide it by the number of months you're in school. Otherwise, they're going to think that you're getting $7,000 every month from your parents, and that's like a lot of money. So just make sure you divide it by the number of months you're in school, 8. So another conversation you might have with your parents, if they're planning, and do your best after having that conversation to guess kind of how much, if your parents are giving you money. If they're letting you live at home, but they're not giving you any money the rest of the month, that's just fine. You'll write in 0. If your parents aren't giving you any money, you write in 0. But if they are, or if, like I said, they're giving you a chunk, just make sure that you divide it by 8, okay? Alimony and child support. What I say about the next several questions is that Minder and Claire heard me say this 100 times, but if you don't know what these next few blocks are, you don't have them. These are very specific types of funding, and the people who have them usually are very aware that they have them. So alimony and child support you receive, again, as the student, not if you have a parent situation and they're doing alimony. It's like if you are receiving alimony or child support, if you are receiving employment insurance, like as the student, if you're receiving AISH, again, I'm not going to explain those because if you don't know what they are, you don't have them. The next one is Indigenous Services Canada. So that's what we would colloquially call band funding. So if you are receiving band funding, you want to report it there. It won't impact your ability to receive the Canada Student Loan, but you still want to report it accurately. And again, if you're receiving your band funding in a big chunk, just make sure you divide it by 8, the number of months that you're in school. And then the last box is very specific. Income from other sources. This is if you have a company that's paying for you to go back to school, or like business, like business income or rental income, I think is all these. If you click on it, it'll detail it. But it's not asking for, nowhere on this page is it asking for like, your income you're going to be making during school, part-time income or work. It's not asking for your savings accounts. It's not asking for any of that. Again, the majority of the information that they're asking is through that line 15,000 from earlier. So, do your best to answer these accurately as possible, but they're not asking you like kind of what you're making through the year. They don't care. The next question is asking non-registered investments. So this would be stocks, bonds, GICs not sheltered within a TFSA or an RSP. So yeah, you don't have to write down RSPs or TFSAs, but any other type of stock or bond or gold bars you have, that's where you'll write that down. If you have those things. If you don't have those things, you will write down 0. That's just fine. Like I said, all of these things might be 0. As long as that's accurate, that's what it is for many students. These are very specific types of funding. So anyway, do not write down TFSAs, RSPs. The last 2, scholarships, bursaries, fellowships. If you know exactly how much scholarship funding you're getting, that's where you can write it down. If you're just hoping to apply for a bursary, if you're hoping to apply, you haven't heard back yet about a scholarship, do not write it down. As of right now, when you're applying, you don't have that money. So unless you know for sure you're receiving that money, you can write down that money there. Otherwise, do not write it down. And you do not need to write down the Rutherford. That's all in the same system. Just do not worry about writing down your Rutherford amount. It's okay. And if you're receiving some other type of burst scholarship, you should write it down and you know for sure, but otherwise don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And then the last question is asking annual resources targeted towards your education costs. Oh, sorry, this one is the one that's asking, like if you have, I think it's if you work for a business that's paying for you to go back to school, or if you have like a rich aunt. I think that's when I read it. I think it's worded as family member other than parents paying for education. So, if you have those things, amazing. You'll have to write that down. Otherwise, you'll just leave that blank. Okay. Again, these are very specific types of funding that they're asking about for the most part. And then that's it. Like the financial information is done. Well, I mean, there's technically a 4th section. I always go, you're done. Technically, if you are a dependent student, so if you are under the age of 23, you haven't taken 4 years, you didn't take a 2-year break after high school, you haven't been at high school for 4 more years, you're single with no dependents, that's a dependent student. Remember all that? So if you're a dependent student, you will have a new section that pops up that your parents have to complete. The parent section is going to look a lot like the first section we looked at, the additional information section. It's going to ask what provinces they've lived in, if they've lived anywhere else. And then it's going to ask the same 3 line questions about their line 15,000. So that's really nice because it's a way, if your parents made money in 2024 and they're making, maybe your parents could take less shifts this year or something, they make less money this year, it's the same 3 questions that they asked you earlier on the application. All the same rules apply for what I said earlier about taxes. So, your parents have to have filed taxes. If they haven't, they can guess, but moving forward, they should really start filing taxes. But if they need to for this year, just to get you into that student loan application, they can guess what their gross income was for 2024. Okay. There are 2 sections to fill out in the parental there's a section for each parent to fill out. If you are supported by both parents, you live in a household with both parents, you will need to complete both sections, parent 1 and parent 2. You can't just choose to not include the second parent if you don't want to. That being said, if you are only being supported by one parent, and the second parent is like not in the picture or it's unhealthy, you can't get a hold of them, whatever, you do not have to go find that parent. It's okay. It is okay if you are truly only supported by one parent to put down the information for one parent. That is okay. All right. And then if you have a spouse or if you're married or common law, you won't have a parent section come up. You'll have a spouse section come up. And if you have dependents, you'll also have a place for you to write out information about your children, a dependent section. So it's really only 3 sections, but there might be a 4th sneaky section depending on if you're dependent or if you're married or common law, okay? But then when you're all done, stick with me, we're almost through it. Whew. When you're all done, if you're feeling good, you can go up to the top and click proceed to submit. You're not actually submitting, but you're proceeding to submit. If there's any errors, like if you forgot to fill out a question or something like that, this red sentence will come up and be like error, and it'll direct you to where you need to go and fix the error. If there is a yellow error, it means that there's something maybe that you can still apply, you can still submit, but they might end up asking you more questions. So if that happens, let us know and we'll see if we can figure out what's going on. But yeah, as long as you're good to go, there's no red, you can go ahead, proceed to submit. No red text, proceed to submit. So you click proceed to submit. Now stick with me here. This is the final question on the application. You think you've submitted, but you haven't submitted. You've proceeded to submit. After this final question, this sneaky last question on the application, this is when this is really the last question on the application. I don't know what's going on here with the arrow for this chat box, this yellow box. The green arrow is just pointing down. Silly arrow. Anyway, this last question is asking how much money you want to receive. So in Alberta, you are actually able to cap the amount of student loan funding that you're going to receive. So earlier I said that you, for an undergraduate student, are eligible for $17,000, but maybe a little bit more with grant funding. That's kind of the maximum. But let's say you have done your budgeting and you only want $5,000. Let's say you know for sure you only want $5,000. Then you can, if you want, put $5,000 in this box. And even though you're eligible for $17,000, you'll only receive $5,000. So it's a way to kind of cap the amount of student loan funding that you're taking. And that will include grant funding. So if you're eligible for grant funding, however much of that $5,000 could be grant funding. So it really caps the amount of student loan funding that is sent to you. That being said, we really caution that students, if you want to do that, that's great, but we really want you to kind of run the numbers and budget and make sure that you have enough if you don't take out the full amount of student loan funding. Tuition, fees, books, living expenses are expensive. We don't want you to take out more than you need, but we also don't want you to have to come back and have to do an appeal that will take 2 months, potentially 6 weeks to 2 months, if you don't take the full amount of money. So it's definitely there for you, but just make sure that you have done that research. If you want to receive just the maximum amount that you can, which is going to be for many students, just leave this box blank. Do not write in 1, 2, 3, 4 or 0. Do not write in, see how there's a number here bolded. In this example, it says 18,450. Do not write in that number. Just literally leave it blank if you want to receive the maximum amount of loans and grants that you are eligible for. Leave it blank. Okay, my last note on this section is if you want to receive just the grant funding. For some reason, the government student loan, other provinces have a checkbox where it's like, do you want to receive just the grant funding? And you can click off yes. They don't have that in this application. But if you were to put in $1 in here, you will only receive grant funding. You won't receive any student loan funding. So it's kind of a one weird trick, sort of, to ensure that you're just receiving grant funding. Again, that's great. Grants are great because you don't have to pay them back, but they are not enough to cover all of your tuition and fees and expenses for the year. If you receive the maximum grant funding, it is $4,200. Average tuition is $7,200. So, if you want to go that route, that's awesome. Please just make sure you have budgeted that's all you need for the year. Again, if you want to receive the maximum amount that you're eligible for, just leave that box blank. Okay. And then the last section is there's like a declaration section, and you're going to be like, yeah. We recommend that you just like take 2 minutes. You're going to be reading much more difficult things in university in your courses than this section. This is a student loan in your name. Just take the 2 minutes to read through it. And at the very end of this declaration, there will be a little button that says submit. And once you click that button, then you've submitted. So, woo! You haven't submitted earlier. This is when you've submitted. And then that's it. You're going to keep an eye on your bursary portal, all of you. You're going to keep an eye out. You're going to look at your notifications. You're not going to ignore them. You're going to sign up for your Alberta and National Student Loan Service Center portals, which again are more important once you're in repayment, but we recommend that you keep an eye on them as you're a student. It might take 4 to 6 weeks to be assessed, but generally we're going to start confirming government student loans starting at the end of August. So just make sure that you're full-time and in the right program by the end of August. By right, I mean the program that you applied for on your student loan application. Student loans will come directly to your tuition, but just make sure you keep an eye on that because it doesn't always work perfectly. And if you have any last questions, you come and see us, okay? We'll try our best to figure out any last questions that you have. I'm going to turn off the recording now. Thank you everybody who's watching this video. So happy you're here. And please ask us if you have any other questions.